hello, and welcome to SCOUTCAST, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we're also joined by the flying green arrows over here that have joined me. Not me so much, with my lonely little red arrow. Nacho, how's it going, my man? Have you enjoyed the international break? Had a good little time away? Maybe like a relaxing time?
Yeah, no, I haven't been away anywhere in particular. Unlike you two, obviously a few weeks ago. So been man in the fort, but no, been good. I've enjoyed the break from FPL. To be honest with you, obviously this first international break always feels way too early, like 4 game weeks or 3 game weeks, and then international break. You don't really get ahead of the steam really, but yeah, it's been a welcome international break. Been a lot of chaos. Obviously, we're going to talk about it with manager changes, player injuries, new signings, of course. So I'm looking forward to deep diving into this. But yeah, starting to think about FPL a bit more now and properly deep dive into it today.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? After 3 weeks and with price changes being so crazy, everybody thinks, oh, you wildcard over an international break and there's going to be loads of movement, and it dies down completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Everyone rushes to get the players in, and then for about 8 days it is just a ghost town, and then we'll see it go crazy Thursday, Friday as always.
Exactly. And speaking of going crazy, we're also joined by Hibbo as well on a green arrow. Lovely stuff. You enjoyed your week off, mate? You ready to get back into FPL mode? Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Like
Oi, oi.
it feels good to be back. Like it's
I bet it does.
international
sorry,
breaks.
Sorry.
International breaks one for me where like weirdly the older I get, the more I enjoy the break, if you know what I mean. And then I get this feeling about what my life would be like without FPL. And sometimes I think it feels good. But then I think you wake up in a cold sweat and you think, well, now we've got game week 4. We've only had 3 game weeks so far. It's a mammoth slog of a season. And as Nacho said, he's hit the nail in the head. And just coming at Forest, there's going to be a bit of change there. People are talking about free hitting. People are talking about playing the wild card. So I think we have a good show in hand tonight.
I think you might need to review your relationship with FPL, Hibbo. I'm starting to get a bit worried about you. All these sweats you're breaking into late at night and things like that. I genuinely, I'm starting to get a little bit worried for you. If you wanted to have a bit of a chat with me and Nacho after the stream, we're more than happy to help you if you need it. All right.
Yeah. Will do, as always.
Good man. Me and Nacho are always here for you. So for those people that are in the chat, thank you very much for joining us. We've already got over 100 people here, which is fantastic considering England are currently, I think they're 3-0 up, which is the exact opposite score to how Ireland did earlier, but we won't mention that for too long. But thank you very much for Ross Johnson, Stephen Harker, Glasto. We've got Adam, Danish Zeitgul, Easy Paul, lots of people in the chat. Florentine, all there, just joining us for the evening, which is absolutely lovely. So thank you very much for joining us. We've got a lovely show for you tonight, looking at Game Week 4, because Game Week 4 is going to be a very, very popular time for free hits and wildcards. If you wanted a stream that was primarily about free hit and wildcard, have a look at our stream from last week, because we literally spoke for, we wanted 40 minutes, but I think we ended up talking for about 55, 60 minutes just about free hit and wildcard. So if you wanted that in particular, go and have a look from last week. Most of it is still completely relevant, even a week after. That's obviously the nature of international breaks. Now, tonight, though, we're going to be looking at our points from 2 weeks ago, which feels like a distant memory. We're going to be looking at some XGI from the first 3 weeks. Just a bit of a spoiler alert, Haaland is comfortably top for XGI involvement so far. We've got Rob T's data on Game Week 4, so we can have a look at the projections for goals, clean sheets, and which teams we're expecting to win. We've also got a few stats on Ange Postecoglou, who is now going to be Nottingham Forest manager, which, I'm not going to lie, I don't think you could have much more of a different manager compared to what who they've just replaced in the very, very defensive Nuno, and now they've gone for Ange, who's just all about attack. So that's going to be very different, especially with those of us with double Forest defence. Then we're going to be looking at the free hit draft from Nacho. He made one for us last week, but he's made a few little changes. So we're going to see what those changes are and see how it's looking. We've got fixtures to look at. We've got a wildcard draft from last week, which we're briefly going to touch on, but not for very long. Then we've got the com teams, who both did quite well. One of them definitely should have bench boosted. We've got our bus teams, and we've got a Q&A at the end as well. So We've got a lot to fit in and we want to try and start as soon as possible. So let's have a look at our points from last week. I came in at 47 points. I'm not going to lie. I was absolutely loving life after Saturday. I had 32 points after Saturday from 3 players. I had Porro, who managed to get DEFCON very late in the day. I had Bruno Fernandes, who I brought in as my transfer. I rolled the other transfer. I brought him in for Palmer, who got me 10 points very, very late on in the game, scored a penalty, and he got DEFCON, so got 10. And I captained Pedro, who played in the early kickoff, who got a goal, didn't take the penalty, which would have been lots of lovely points for myself. And I was loving life, 32 points after 3 players, and then the rest of the team managed to get me 15 points combined, with 8 points Richards first on my bench. So it was not a good Sunday. Unfortunately, 47 points. 8 Nori getting me 0 points. Reinders doing nothing. The Forest clean sheet going late, and then they conceded 3 goals to West Ham at home. It all just kind of went wrong, to be perfectly honest. And the Liverpool-Arsenal game obviously being a very, very low-scoring affair with Salah doing nothing as well. Nothing really went right after Saturday. But 47 points, down to 4 million. There's not a lot in between ranks at the moment. But you two boys manage green arrows. Nacho, talk us through your very healthy 57 points.
Yeah, 57 points. I mean, it was the tale of some late goals really in this scenario. So yeah, 57 points was a decent game week. Sanchez was a 6-pointer. Bit of a controversial clean sheet, it must be said. So I'll just take that and run.
Just say that honestly, every week now.
Oh, it feels like it. It really does with Chelsea. So yeah, obviously Badiashile back in training, Lavia back. Is that going to improve Chelsea defensively? I don't know. I still think we're quite suspect defensively. So we'll take whenever we can get a clean sheet. Porro with the latest of DEFCON points I've ever seen. I think they processed them like you said, like Monday or whatever. So that was great addition. Van de Ven with the 1-pointer, Murillo 1-pointer. Sa was the transfer that I made, one of the 2, coming in with 7 points, but of course now yellow flagged, which is really frustrating. Obviously, for those that benched him in preparation for game week 4, it could have been worse. At least I started him in this scenario. We'll talk about some replacements. Rodgers just frustrating alongside Watkins with 2 points apiece. And Bruno Fernandes with that captaincy. I mean, talk about late goals. That absolutely carried this, because in another world, doesn't score that, and it ends up being a bit of a woeful game week, really. And then, of course, the front 3 of Wood, Watkins, and Pedro doing all the heavy lifting. The standout on my bench was Dewsbury Hall with a 12-pointer. Previously playing in a bit more of a double pivot role, went up into the 10 in game week 3. And people talk about how it's a lovely headache to have, but when you got him on the points on the bench, it is still quite frustrating. But I'm glad I've got him in. We'll talk about Everton later, but he feels like a good enabler, and if he continues in the 10, I think he is a great pick at 5 million or whatever he is now.
Isn't it funny how just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we were saying how going Dewsbury Hall over Reinders was, that's a mistake, should have spent the extra 0.5 million, and now it's looking good you're having Dewsbury Hall, isn't it? Things change so quickly.
Yeah, it's just the story of FPL, isn't it? Just sometimes you just got to chill. Hopefully things come to fruition, and then you can react afterwards. And again, 3 game weeks is still so little game weeks, but it's looking promising with Dewsbury Hall. Even though the finish, he's never scored a goal at that again, that's for sure.
Just very, very quickly talking about Saar, by the way, before we move on to Hibbo's points. I had a bit of a debate with somebody on X about they brought in Saar to bench him because they wanted him for fixtures later on. So they didn't have to make the transfer. They made the transfer, brought Saar in, benched him, obviously didn't get his points, and now he's injured. What's your kind of take on bringing a player in with a transfer? Considering we can bank up to 5, what's your take on bringing in a player just to bench him that week? It seems, I mean, if it's it's a player that costs a bit of money, do you see that as a good way of playing, or do you think that's maybe a little less optimal than you should be playing?
Personally, I'm not a fan of it in terms of, if it was just like that singular transfer to go on the bench, to me that doesn't make a lot of sense. If it was part of a double transfer, and then the first player you brought in is starting, the second, in this case Saar, goes on the bench in preparation, then I'm not against that. But I think with someone like Saar, when you're bringing a player like him, and you do know that you've got a player that can score at any sort of fixture, the way that Crystal Palace do play, so you're always taking that risk. But if it was a singular transfer, bringing in Saar to their bench, I mean, you're asking for trouble a little bit in that scenario.
Yeah, big time. And Hibbo, let's have a look at your points. 54, comfortably nestled between me and Nacho, which I know is where you like to be. Talk us through yours. Some scoring forwards, which we haven't seen in many teams so far.
So 54 points, and my transfers last time out were Palmer and Gui, Desar and Matera, 2 free transfers. I benched Sar, by the way, so like you were talking about me there. So on goal, I have Sanchez. Sanchez in goal with a clean sheet against Fulham. I think we all know that was fairly lucky because Fulham had a fairly legitimate goal disallowed. I had Porro and Romero, double Spurs defence. They looked good under Thomas Frank, but I think they were kind of resoundingly beat by Bournemouth, even though it was only 1-0. I think Bournemouth outplayed them. Porro obviously got the day off con. Agbadou got a single point. Then in midfield, I had Bruno captain, so 10 times 2, so he got the goal, 2 bonus, DEFCON. I'm going to say huge skill pick. I'm not going to play this one down. Then I had Salah and Wirtz with 3 points each. Reindeer got 2. And then up front, Matera with a goal and a yellow card. Thiago with a goal and a yellow card. And Watkins with a blank. So Sar was first sub for me. It doesn't look great. Like I had a 50-50 decision basically between playing Reinders or Sar.
He's justifying it, Nacho. He's answering you back. This is his rebuttal. Just calm down.
I'm just giving you the logic, or like, well, what my logic was. Basically, it was like a 50-50 for me between Reinders and Sar. It obviously doesn't look good when Sar get injured, but let's see what the prognosis is with Sar, because I think we had announcements on Twitter, which we basically had to Google Translate. Let's see what Palace say. Let's see if he comes back on the train. I'm imagining that he's going to be out. I do take the point, though, kind of bringing a player on the bench is always going to leave yourself open to, if you're forward planning that player getting injured that weekend, then it doesn't look particularly good. But no, it stings a wee bit because points on the bench, I'd rather have points on the board.
Yeah.
But 54 was okay.
Exactly. I'd rather have your points on the board. I mean, you were just saying there about, the skill issue of Bruno, whatever. But if you're picking a penalty taken, midfielder that plays every minute of every game, and they get penalties in injury time, that's not lucky, is it? You're picking a player is going to play an awful lot of minutes. This is what the problem was Pedro, obviously, was that he wasn't going to be playing all the minutes, whereas it's looking more and more likely that he is going to be playing a lot more minutes moving forward. But I don't see that as a massive skill issue. But, there it is. Mateta, bit disappointing for you though. Mateta obviously scored the penalty, but instantly got booked. So the amount of permutations in his points there, he would have been, actually doing quite well because of bonus and everything. But obviously that hurt him quite a bit.
It did. And it's funny because he regularly does that celebration.
Yeah.
He goes and he kicks the corner flag. And I don't know why it ended up a yellow this time. Because is it the fact that the corner flag came out of the ground? I'm not too sure. But I think he's going to have to rethink the celebration because he can't be getting booked every week and he's going to cost us potential bonus points and stuff like that. So it isn't ideal. When I saw him kick the flag and get yellow carded straight away, I thought, for God's sake, it would have been a good start. And then Sar obviously scored very late in the game. So I thought I'd got away with the benching, and then sucker punch, he scored at the very end. To be honest, I thought Villa would have put up more of a fight, but Villa have been quite poor.
Yeah. It's literally ridiculous. They did it to Palace game week 1 against Chelsea, didn't they? When someone wasn't a certain amount away from the wall and all that kind of stuff. Palace seem to be getting a hard deal of it at the moment. Let's have a look at some XGI though. So XGI for game weeks 1 to 3. And this is, we can see on the table here. If you can't see the table because you're listening on the pod, make sure you just have a quick look on the stream to have a look at this. This is a table that Hibbo knocked up for us, which is lovely. You can see their goals, you can see their assists, you can see their XJ and XA and XG, and also their XGI. You can also see their shots as well as how many minutes they played. Comfortably top of XGI is Haaland at 4.16. Absolutely smashing everybody else out of the water at the moment with his XGI. Next up is Bruno Fernandes. Then we've got Enzo Fernandez. Notice, obviously, it's all the penalty takers that are in the top 3. Then we got Mbumo in 4th at 2.11. And Ismaila Sarr and Estevao, who are there in top 6. And the only players who have contributed more than 2 XGI so far this season. Then we've got Jadon Anthony from Burnley. Semenyo, Brooks, Welbeck, Chris Wood. Whether that's going to continue, we're going to talk about that in a second. Grealish, who is put up the most XA of any player so far this season, and I think he's got 4 assists in his first 3 games. Then we got Mateta, Gyökeres, and Pedro, who make up the top 15. Now, Nacho, we were talking a little bit last week when we were talking about wildcard. The massive thing here when you're looking down this table, who is the noticeable absentee? Top 15, who's the player that's not on there that we're paying 14.5 million for?
A certain Mohamed Salah.
And then you've got Haaland, who's putting up 4.16 XGI over the first 3 game weeks. If for people that went Salah over Haaland, have they made a massive mistake here? If we looked at the first 3 weeks and gone, we made a mistake here, we need to rectify this pretty quickly.
No, I'm going to say it's not a mistake, personally. I don't think it's necessarily a mistake at all. I think we knew what we were getting with Liverpool's fixtures coming up. I think we have to obviously break it down in terms of Liverpool played up against Bournemouth, who then went and beat Spurs 1-0 and battered them, really. Played Newcastle away and then Arsenal, the best defence in the league. So the first 3 games for Liverpool, I think everyone talks about game weeks 3 and 2, but I actually think game week 1 against Bournemouth, then put 4 goals up, is impressive, but a tough game nonetheless. And now we're coming into the fixtures of Burnley, Everton, Palace, Chelsea, and Man United. But Mohamed Salah himself is not worth 14.5 million. Let's just put it out there right now. His expected goals is 0.3. It's not good looking at all. And my worry right now with Liverpool is that there's been a lot of change going on there. Whereas Man City have bought players, Cherky, Reinders, but the same thing is happening. Get the ball to Haaland, keep him between the sticks, and let him score goals. We've seen this Liverpool team share goals amongst everybody, and that's without Florian Wirtz even contributing in the final third yet, which anybody that's watched him, I'm not here to listen to anybody who's going to slag off Wirtz. Top player, he's going to come good, and we have to add into the mix Alexander Isak. My worry is that these goals are going to continue to spread amongst Liverpool, and you've got to ask yourself the question, is it time to jump off Mo Salah? But it ain't this game week against Burnley, that's for sure.
If you were starting the game again now, and welcome back, Hibbo, by the way, lost you for a little bit there. If you were starting the game now, as in from game week 4 onwards, you hadn't made a team yet, would you have Haaland over Salah?
With what we know of game weeks 1 to 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be Erling Haaland now, definitely, because I think there are alternatives in this Liverpool team that we can go for, whereas I still look at this Man City team and I don't think a single person is putting their hand up to say to me, yes, I can not match Erling Haaland, but bring some value. I look at Liverpool, Isak eventually, Ekitike right now, even Gakpo is showing some signs of being FPL value. I think that's why Erling Haaland, as of now, would be my choice if I was starting scratch.
So what do we do then, Hibbo? What do we do if we're literally saying Haaland is a better pick than Salah right now? Why aren't we doing what we can to swap them over?
Well, I think immediately we do nothing. You know, like you're looking at the fixture this week, Salah's a standout captain away from home to Burnley. So you're not going to make the switch this week because you definitely want to have Haaland or you definitely want to have Salah. I do think he's both make a pretty good point in that. Look at Liverpool now. So they've got Wirtz, they've got Ekitike, they've got Gakpo. Isak's going to come on the mix. I don't think it'll be straight away. I think Isak will be on the bench this week. I think I might take a game week or 2 and then eventually he's going to phase on. But I do think that's a valid point in the fact that if you have big players within that team that are effectively going to soak up goal share, is there the potential that Salah's going to start to play a slightly lesser role? You would expect them to score more goals as a team, but are we going to maybe see Salah be kind of slightly less influential than he was last season? It's possible because like last season, the numbers that he put up and the records that he broke, no player in FPL is ever going to replicate that again. You know, like a season that's almost like say 350 points. That's ridiculous. It's like doping basically, because his previous season was 303 points and he completely smashed that out of the park. So I think we have to kind of temper our expectations to a certain degree because we can't measure him against last season. If we measure him against a normal season and he drops off ever so slightly, there could be the argument that he's maybe not what he was, but I don't think it's a conversation for this week. I think this week you want to have Salah, and this week you want to have Salah captain. But like, let's see, Isaac's going to come in at what? He started at 10.5, but he's maybe dropping value a bit since.
Yeah.
Like he could be a good route on that attack for slightly cheaper. You could buy 2 players that give you a route on that attack for roughly not much more spend and kind of plump them for Salah and a cheaper option.
It's weird looking at the comparisons to last year and thinking people that didn't move Haaland to Salah quickly enough, it hurt them massively last year. And some people didn't recover all season. Nacho, are we having the same this year? Is this going to happen this year where people should move Salah to Haaland and they're not wanting to because obviously Salah is what he is? But has there been fundamental change in this Liverpool team that means that this is the move, we should learn from last year and you should just do it?
Yeah, I think firstly, like for those that are wondering about the conversation with Salah, I don't think him as a player has necessarily dropped off. I just think the way that Liverpool are functioning as a team, and again, we have to remember there's only 3 game weeks, but I think the way that they've bought the investment in the spine of the team of Wirtz and Isak and Ekitike, I just don't see how Mo Salah is going to be valued at 14.5 million. At the start of the season, we didn't really know what was happening with the transfers. Now we know the way that Salah's been integrated. I just don't see a way in which they're going to accommodate him like they done last season, have Szoboszlai do all his running, and they just play him up top and basically say kick the ball to Salah. That ain't happening anymore. So are we being slow to react to this? Possibly. But I think the fixtures right now are good enough for us to just hold off a little bit longer. And I do think the mass selling is going to come probably around game week 6, where Man City have got Burnley at home and Liverpool are away against Crystal Palace, followed by Chelsea away. Then they got Man United, Brentford and Villa, whereas City have got Brentford, Everton, Villa, Bournemouth. I think that is when the big switch is going to happen. And you might actually pay off going to Haaland now. But what would I rather have? Salah for Burnley and Everton, or would I rather have Haaland for Man United and Arsenal away? And I think 2 more of Mo Salah is what I'd rather prefer.
Yeah, fair. Lovely. And in 5th place here is Ismaila Sarr, Hibbo. 2.03 XGI so far this season. He loves playing Villa. People kept showing his Villa record, and he loves playing against them and loves scoring against them. But unfortunately, it looks like he could be injured. Like you said, we have had no proper confirmation as to how long he's out for, but it does look like he is injured in some respect. If you had Sarr now, so for instance, let's think that maybe you're a suboptimal manager, you brought him in last week just to bench him. If you've got him now, what do you do? Do you hold off for as long as possible and wait to see what happens? We got a Saturday morning deadline. Do you wait to see if we get any more confirmation? And when you do get confirmation, if he is out, who do you think you should be moving him to? Are there a couple of options?
There's kind of lots to unpack in that question. I think firstly, like looking at his numbers are hugely impressive. Do you know, like if we think about Crystal Palace, like we think about Eze's obviously left the team, but them having a kind of trio of options and like Mateta, Eze and Sarr that can do the good stuff. But like how comfortably 5th Sarr is here, 6th Sarr is in this table, he's really, really flying high. He's producing big XG. I think it's something like 1.98. Mm-hmm. Having to sell him before Sunderland's a bit of a pain. I think we have to get a proper prognosis of where he's at in terms of his injury. And I think we're only going to get that from Palace. I think we're only going to get that from Glasner. I don't think he's a manager that necessarily hides a lot. I think he'll come out and be fairly honest about the position with Sarr. And I think if people are in the same position as me, and I think a few are, we have to wait and see what that is. For me this week, I have a couple of different options. And it'll all depend on Sarr's timeline. Do you know what? If Sarr's going to be okay next week or the week after that, at 6.5 million, is not a lot of money for me to sit on my bench. Yeah. There is the option that you could go sideways and the people maybe like Grealish and Dye. You could come down in price and maybe go to somebody like an Anderson, although we don't really know how Forest are going to operate under Ange, although if you get past Arsenal, they've got 2 good fixtures in Burnley and Sunderland. So I do think there's options in that kind of cheap part in midfield, and it maybe lends itself to the conversation that we're having about there's big hitters like Haaland that are kicking off.
Yeah.
And having that kind of extra wee bit of money that you can, if you have like your kind of decent anchor options that maybe get DEFCON. I know Anderson didn't get DEFCON in the first 3 game weeks. but he had like 11, 11, 11. You know, so you have to consider, Anderson owners have to consider themselves hugely unlucky. He's got the England call-up. He looks like a real player. So I do think there are those kind of anchor DEFCON players that you could be moving onto your team. And then thinking, right, well, who are my kind of captaincy options? Is Haaland there? Is Salah there? Is Gyökeres there if he has a very good fixture, I suppose? Is Bruno there if he has a very good fixture? And have been able to rely on those players. So, no, for me, it's a wait and see. Let's see what Crystal Palace say. And then I'll look on around the options. But like Grealish and Dye, Anderson, people like that are all in the mix for me at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, Nacho, Hibbo's mentioned Grealish a couple of times there. I don't think anybody expected him to move to Everton and done quite what he's done in the first 3 game weeks in terms of having 4 assists, 1.29 XA and 0.32 XG. So, you know, he's top 12 at the moment for XGI over the first 3 games. And he's only played 204 minutes. So, you know, 60, 70 minutes less than a few players there. Is he now going to be what he was at Villa? Is he going to be able to play like he was when he was at Villa? Because obviously he moved to City and he became kind of very, very manufactured as an asset. But now, if he's kind of unleashed at 6.7 million, with Everton still having some good fixtures to come as well, is he the player you can move to if you've got Salah?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all hope that we do see the return of Jack Grealish, because it's been a while since we've seen that freedom. Like, I don't really remember seeing it in a Man City shirt, to be honest with you, like you mentioned. So I want to firstly say I'm not going to like jump on and say he's back, everybody should buy him. But at 6.7 million for a player of his quality that we know he is, I think it is an exciting prospect. Now, of course, the problem is when you're paying that price point, we only have like 2 game weeks worth of information from Jack Grealish really here. So we don't, 2.5 is it? But I don't really know whether he will be a goal scorer. So it comes down to, can he continue to be the creator in this team, which I absolutely think he can in the positions that he's taken up. He looks fantastic. But also, home game against Brighton, in which, to be honest, Brighton should have done a bit better in that game. And then in game week 3, they had their game against Wolves, who equally are quite struggling right now. So we look at the games coming up for Everton. I'm going to be honest, at home against Aston Villa in game week 4, unless they buck up their ideas, I see an Everton win once again there. But then Liverpool away, West Ham and Palace at home back-to-back. I actually don't think it's a bad entry point for going for someone like a Jack Grealish. My only problem is going for 6.7 million is when I look at these numbers and see they're not really a goal scorer, it does put me off slightly, because I want the people like the Ismail Assar, who are the goal scorers in their teams. That's where the bonus points and the main points do come from. But I want to say again, it's only a few games worth of information. As soon as we know it by game week 7, he might have scored a few goals, got into some better positions. But what we're seeing right now, it looks like he's going to be chief creator in that team. And then they're going to be trying to find the likes of Ndai and whoever plays as the 9 to basically be the ones that convert in the game. So I couldn't put off anybody going for Grealish right now. Looks like they have got the best of him. But again, things could change in a couple of weeks. It's only been a few game weeks. But I like what I'm seeing with Grealish.
So would you prefer Ndai? If you had to pick now, would you be going for the goal scorer?
Well, yes, I prefer the penalty taker, definitely. It looks like his actual numbers are the opposite of that of Grealish, in terms of he's more a goal scorer, less of a creator. But unless you boys know, came off early, I believe, in the game, or have I got that completely wrong? Just checking right now. Ndai in game week 2 come off 63 minutes against Brighton, but then played the full 90 against Wolves. So it sounds like it's one of those where it probably was just one of those tactical changes. I still think Ndai would be my preference right now. XG right now 1.3. The penalty taker, I think that's still where I would go.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned it a couple of times about, and I know Hibbo mentioned about bringing Anderson in. Obviously, the big news that came out, and we were expecting it during the international break, was the fact that Nuno got sacked by Forest, quite wildly, to be honest. But obviously, when you fall out with your wild owner, unfortunately, that's probably going to happen. And Ange Postecoglou is coming in now. They're 2 completely different managers there. Nuno known for, we want to keep a clean sheet every game, whereas Ange was much more of a, we want to entertain and we're going to score lots of goals, and obviously struggled defensively quite massively in his last season with Spurs there. Now, Hibbo, we've got something here from Rob T and Solio showing the expectation of Ange in terms of DEFCON and defensively. It's not looking good in terms of what we can maybe expect from him. But could it be different with the style of, with the type of players that Forest have? Is it that if you've got double Forest defence, you should be jumping ship now, even though they've got 2 nice fixtures in the next 3? What's your take on this move, do you think? Because lots of people do have quite a few Forest players in their team.
Yeah, and it's kind of understandable because of how well Forest did last season under Nuno. But like, he's gone, Ange is in. From a football perspective, I'm not really sure about the mix of Marinakis and Postecoglou. They've both got that Greek fire in them, and I think it has the makings of like a classic toxic relationship. Like, when they're good, they'll be on top of the world, but I think it has the potential to unravel kind of fairly quick. Ange has not a transfer window, but I'm not really sure how much that matters at Forest and how much he would influence transfer strategy, because they seem to be one of these very modern clubs that goes out and buys whichever players they want, and then they appoint a manager and effectively call him a head coach. If we look at the fixtures, Arsenal away is tough, but I don't think there's any expectation. Then he's got Burnley and Sunderland. So I think a decent start for Ange would be 2 1s and 3. The data tells a story basically about how he was at Spurs, and I think you make a good point in the fact that he has different players at Forest, so it'll be interesting to see kind of the comparison after maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. But his style isn't very conducive to DEFCON, and I think what we've seen so far with Forest is I think 2 players at Forest have had DEFCON so far. Anya was one of them. Murillo didn't get anything. Milinkovic didn't get anything. So I suppose people like yourself that have like double Forest, you're wondering, what do I do with these guys? I think my immediate gut would be you hold them. Because you do have the Burnley game and you do have the Sunderland game. I don't think there's, unless you really, really need to buy a defender this week, I wouldn't be rushing to get rid of them, because 2 of the next 3 are pretty good. And then I think you reassess. I do think long term that under Ange, they're not going to be as good defensively as they were under Nuno. And they're definitely not going to be as good for DEFCON. So I think that's going to be a case of us readjusting our prayers around Nottingham Forest and thinking, this is a good clean sheet side. These are good DEFCON players. This might have just flipped in its head overnight.
Yeah, I mean, if he tries to play that high defensive line with these players, I think it's going to be an absolute massacre at times. But it'd be interesting to see how he does to start with. Nacho, the big player, and I'm going to show Rob T's graphic here so we can see an idea as to how we're expecting teams to do in terms of goals and clean sheets. Now, the big team that a lot of people are thinking about investing in and jumping on at the moment, you can see in the main graphic there, is Crystal Palace and Munoz. Crystal Palace, 43% chance of a clean sheet. Crystal Palace, 1.69 goals projected. Whereas you look at Nottingham Forest, where they've gone their away to Arsenal, 0.82, 12% chance of a clean sheet. Does it make too much sense moving from a Murillo or a Milinkovic or a Neco Williams to try and get to Munoz?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think, of course, it's we got to look over a more than just a 1 game week perspective. Unless some people are looking to wildcard maybe in game week 5 or 6 or free hit in game week 6, then that is possibly a strategy. Because, of course, if you go down the route of maybe free hitting in game week 6, then you could move off a Forest player to Crystal Palace, go for the upside of Munoz or the defensive contributions of, I'm going to try and pronounce it, Lacroix, whatever it is. You basically can get Lacroix and Munoz for Sunderland, West Ham. You could free hit in game week 6 and bring back your Nottingham Forest if we've seen enough from Ange to suggest that, they might actually be okay. Then after that, Palace have got Everton, Bournemouth, Arsenal, but then a really nice run up until game week 14. Whereas I look at Forest fixtures coming up, and yes, you're all going to bench him in Arsenal. I think a few people might just reluctantly roll out a Murillo possibly and pray for defensive contributions if, for example, they hold on to an Ismail Assar, which is fine. But then after that, Burnley, Sunderland, you really are just praying he hits the ground running, because after that, Newcastle, Chelsea and Bournemouth, I don't see any clean sheets over that period. In particular, with it being Ange in charge, I just don't see him having any sort of defensive sort of thought process when he comes to setting up a team. I think it's going to be all about how can we get the ball turned over quick and attack. So for that reason, if you're on the free hit 6 strategy in particular, I'd be all in, moving away from Arsenal to Palace this week. Moving away from Forest to a Crystal Palace defender this week. But I don't think it's absolutely essential. 5 and 6 are good for Forest.
Yeah, I mean, are there worries about Palace as well, Hibbo? Because we're looking here, obviously, like I said, clean sheet odds and goal scoring odds not too bad. They're not the best. You've got Newcastle, who equally have a high clean sheet percentage. So do Liverpool, so do Arsenal, and we know Arsenal defenders are obviously very good, but Saliba's now out for a little while as well. But there is some disruption with Palace as well, isn't there? With Sarr maybe being out, Eze's already gone. You've got Gahey that's been unsettled. Wharton, who we think won't be out for as long as we initially thought, but might be missing the next game. Is all that disruption a worry, do you think?
I think it's definitely a concern, and I think what you've said in relation to Eze and Sar's kind of baked into the projected goals here. Like, it wouldn't be normal for Palace to be projected for 1.69 goals at home to Sunderland. You would be expecting 2+, but I think because really their focal point from an attacking point of view is just Matera now, and they don't have Sarr and they don't have Eze, I think it's significant that they're sitting on 1.69 here. All very valid points. I think what they're doing at the minute is they're trying to play with a very thin squad. I think at one point Glasner was quoted as saying he had 15 fit senior players, and at the minute he's trying to combine Premier League with Conference League, trying to play that Thursday to Sunday football, and that's a really, really big ask considering they've sold Eze. They were very close to selling Gahey. Wharton, as you said, is injured, so I think like their midfield is going to be something pretty makeshift, like Will Hughes and Kamada is what I think we could, these are the kind of players that we're going to see starting for Crystal Palace, which is a big change from when you seen the team and it was kind of very blockbuster with Eze and Sarr in there. So I do think there's concerns. Defensively, I do think they've looked pretty good. And not just Munoz. I think Lacroix, if we're going to say his name correctly, like Nacho did. But I think Lacroix, I think Gahey, it's not just all about Munoz anymore because DEFCON's such a big factor. These boys can come out. They do good XG as well from set pieces. They have the potential to do DEFCON. But this feels like a Munoz fixture. And maybe the argument, and I know some people were saying, could we see Munoz play further forward and as an attacker? I don't think we're going to see that. But he could have more license to attack from the right back position. I think we could see that. And we could see it against Sunderland. So he's the one player I'm looking at the minute where I'm thinking, I wish I had a Palace defender and I wish I had Munoz.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough not owning him this week. I feel like if you're a non-owner, you're going to not want really to be wanting to watch that game. So like you said, I think it does feel like they're kind of a fixture this week. When we were looking at the fixtures as well, like we were just talking about Crystal Palace, and I know Nacho has mentioned this a couple of times, like the fixtures are nice for quite a while. And I know they've got Liverpool at home in game week 6, but I think that's still okay in terms of scoring. And then obviously you've got Arsenal in 9, but apart from that, it's all green fixtures. If obviously Hibbo's already got Mateta, but Nacho, we don't. Any temptation to try and get to Mateta? You've got someone like Watkins who's not firing at the moment. Free up a bit of funds, move to Mateta. Is that a temptation, do you think?
This is the one, really. I remember this really clearly a couple of seasons back where I think I had a double up almost of Man United. And I think it was Rashford and Bruno Fernandes when they were a little bit cheaper. And I remember the first 7 game weeks, them doing very similar to that of Watkins and Rodgers, where they kept blanking. I said to myself, the fixtures are still really good up until game week 7. Hold on to them. And it got to game week 7, nothing was good, and the rank was all over the shop. And I'm worried we might see the same thing right now. So with the fixtures coming up, Everton and Sunderland away, back to back, then Fulham at home, and then Burnley at home. So I would say for a run of fixtures of 4, it's actually not too bad, but do I look at Everton away and Sunderland away as fantastic fixtures? I almost don't right now. I feel Villa are really there to be got at. Clearly something's a little bit unrest. I'm a little bit worried in terms of the way that they're creating. Harvey Elliott coming in might actually be a huge benefit, but to be honest with you, I don't know whether he is going to just hit the ground running and completely change this Aston Villa team. That said, I think there are other fires to put out in teams. And I think that's why a lot of us are just going to stick with Watkins and all. But look, could I put anybody off going Watkins to Mateta this week? No, I don't really have a big argument against it. But Watkins is still putting up okay numbers. It's just whether Villa can click, because I don't think they've scored a goal right now, have they? So for me, I'd keep with Villa, trust the faith, and pray.
Do you remember before the season started, Hibbo, where we were saying that this could be the season with the extra transfers we get for AFCON, with all these extra chips that we get to play at the beginning of the season, with the fact you can roll up to 5 free transfers, and we were saying this could be the season to go aggressive. This could be the season to say, that's not working, change it up. That's not working, change it up. We're seeing it with Salah and Haaland. We're just saying it with Watkins. He's done nothing so far. Villa have looked awful. Could move to a Mateta. And people are being very reserved and waiting and being patient. Do you think that's fine? Do you think, well, yeah, we'd be patient. That's how we play the game. Do you think the game's changing a bit and it's kind of calling for a bit of aggression? We see it all the time, people complaining about, why aren't people making changes? Why are people scared to do stuff? Do you think it's being scared, or do you think it's just playing the way we should be playing FPL?
I don't think it's playing scared. Like, I think it's playing strategically, and I think it's playing tactically, and I think, ultimately as fantasy managers, we don't want to get ourselves in a position where we have to take hits. And I think we're looking at these chips, or me personally, I'm looking at these chips and I'm thinking, it's all well and good at the start of the season saying maybe there's scope here to play aggressively, but I think you have to have your chip strategy fairly nailed down. And in my head, I'm thinking, initially I was thinking, I'll BB bench boosting 5, I'll free hitting 6, I might wildcard slightly later. But all the time, my chip thoughts are kind of changing. I'm thinking, will I bench boosting 5? I still might free hitting 6. So knowing when they play aggressive and when they play tight all feeds under your chip strategy as well, I think, at the exact same time, because we do have fixture swings. If you're not going to wildcard now, or if you are going to wildcard now, there's going to be fixture swings later down the line that you aren't really equipped to move to those fixture swings. Like later around about game week 13, I think Liverpool, Man City get very good around game week 13. So you could wildcard now and put your team in a very good position. But I think what you're seeing where people are being slightly more patient is they're thinking, well, I want to be kind of slightly prepared to be able to play through transfers until such a time as I'm ready to wildcard. The counterbalance is, last week I felt like I was playing aggressive. Because I went out and I bought the 2 Palace boys because I wanted to have them on for Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? So then you can get a wee bit unlucky with your transfers because suddenly your player does a hamstring, he doesn't play, okay, I benched them. But I think there's a fine balance. I think people need to be patient. I think it's been a slow start across the board for fantasy managers, and you're seeing, and I've seen it in the chat tonight, content creators are 3 million in rank, and what's going on? But we haven't played 3 chips. There's people out there that have played 3 chips and they're jumping up and down. They're going, we're top 500k. I think this season is fundamentally different with DEFCON, and I think we're all getting our heads around that. And I think in the near future, when we do wildcard and we move our teams forward, I think you're going to see the resurgence. And I don't think it's a bad thing to play with a bit of patience right now.
Yeah. And it's always easier after the fact to say, there should have been patience. We should have been more aggressive, whatever it is, because obviously hindsight's 2020. But it's interesting this year because before the season started, I thought aggression might be the way to play. But like you said, it can happen the other way. And you were aggressive last week, got Salah, and look what's happened. But when we're looking at the fact that we could free hit this week, Nacho, I've seen on a few projection sites, let's say, that apparently free hit 4 is the optimal strategy. Free hit 4 is the way to go. Now, you've made our free hit for us here, and you've made a few changes from your one last week. Just talk us through what you've come up with here and whether you are tempted to free hit at all.
Okay, yeah. So Game Week 4 free hit is definitely one that's tempted me. I wouldn't say I'm there. I'm definitely not there. I think my team looks okay, but when you look at the fixtures, first and foremost, the ones that really stand up, and of course we kind of had the graphic earlier regarding Rob T. It feels pretty important to, have a piece of Liverpool, at least a double up in attack, at least. I feel like there are some really good Newcastle differentials out there against Wolves, whether that be a Vissa, if you really want to trust it. But I think there are some midfielders there, like an Alanga or a Barnes, who once again are really lowly owned. Palace, if you haven't got any Palace assets, what an easy way to get them in your free hit team. And then it's a case of juggling the rest of the teams available to us. You could go for Man City, of course, against Man United if you can afford Erling Haaland. So the team that I've made, and again, I'll talk about some of the omissions in a minute, is, I'm just getting up because I can't see it on the screen. So, gone for Raya in goal. I think at home against Forest with the manager change, I just feel like you need some sort of Arsenal coverage in this area, because I think the defenders is really where the value lies. And that's why I've gone for Munoz, Lacroix, and Livramento, double Palace, really leaning into that clean sheet odds. And I think Lacroix is great for defensive contributions. Munoz, we know, is just an absolute lock for this free hit. I think Livramento is a brilliant differential at home against Wolves, who have been quite disappointing this season. Midfield four of Salah, Semenyo, Gakpo, and Barnes. Now, again, no real big hitters outside of Mo Salah. I think Mo Salah is a given on this free hit. I know he's had a poor start to the season in terms of numbers, but very hard not to go with him in this team with the captaincy. Semenyo, again, the numbers have been fantastic. Gakpo, the second midfielder. And then Barnes, I think he's a really nice differential with the Gordon red card. I still believe he's going to be out for this game. I love the idea of Johan Visser, but I don't know how match fit he is. So that's why I'm leaning towards a midfielder as opposed to a Newcastle forward. And then a front three of Ekitike, Mateta, and Gyökeres. So I think Ekitike's minutes, he's still going to be the starter. Isak's played about 20 minutes in this international break. Yeah. And the Sweden manager has come out and said that he isn't ready to start. So he ain't going to be starting for Liverpool in this game. So I think that front three is nice. I think Gyökeres is still not the player that I would want personally. But I think at home against Forest with Ange in charge, I think it's a good opportunity that you kind of have to take in this team. Of course, no Erling Haaland. But if I go for Erling Haaland, you really do have to shake up this team a little bit. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what you boys think. I think Haaland's a huge omission here. I get it. But you obviously have to take some big sacrifices in the rest of the team in order to have Erling Haaland.
I really like this free hit. I think this is better than the one you showed last week. I like the changes you've made. You know what's going to happen, though, don't you? I cannot wait for Wirtz to finally get his brace. And Salah, Gakpo, and Ekitike all to blank. I mean, Hibbo, is there any omissions here you think you can see?
I honestly really like this free hit. I think it's much better than the one last week. And, I think we're thinking about going back to that conversation about playing aggressively. This is playing aggressively. Liverpool are fancied for 2.41 goals this week, and he's plumping for Salah, captain, Gakpo, and Ekitike. You could argue maybe that Ekitike could have his minutes curbed slightly. What's he going to play? 70 minutes, and maybe that's a kind of counterbalance against him, where you could say, does a Liverpool defender improve this as opposed to having Ekitike? But all round, I think this is good. Fundamentally, there isn't much that would change. If Palmer was fit, I think he could possibly come into the conversation. But we don't know where Palmer is. He obviously didn't make the squad for the last game. He hasn't really been seen in training so far, so I think he's off the menu. But I think this, Lacroix, Munoz, Newcastle defender, Arsenal defender, I think it's nice. I think it's aggressive, and I do think a team like this could go really well this week. Can't fault it at all.
No, I really like it. I mean, Nacho, give us a percentage. Give us what percentage you are in terms of tempted to play the free hit. This must be tempting you a little bit.
Definitely is, because when I look at this right now, I have no Palace if Sar's out, no Arsenal, one Liverpool in Mo Salah, and I can give or take Newcastle. I wouldn't look at this and think, oh my God, I need them in this team, because I think they're still trying to integrate new players. But yeah, I would say I'm probably like 30%. I love the team.
Only
I like
30.
the team. But at no point have I felt compelled to use the free hit as of yet. Where are you boys at? Because we haven't really spoke about where we're at in terms of free hit.
My only thing with free hit was, I remember when we were looking at weeks to play chips, wildcard was easy to kind of look at weeks and go, game week 4, game week 7, game week 13 make a lot of sense. Bench boost, it was it was around AFCON because you get all those free transfers to use it. Free hit was the biggest one for me, where I was thinking it could come kind of anywhere really. The only thing that's stopping me using it this week is that I don't want to lose out on the transfer, obviously, but also I don't want to go back to my team that I've got afterwards. And I look at it and think, but if I'm already looking and thinking I'm not really sure where else to use the free hit, is this the week to do it? But I've got 2 free transfers. I've already got 2 Liverpool, so I could get 2 Palace if I wanted to, and I'm not too far away. I don't know. I'm most likely not going to use it. I'm not sure whether Hibbo thinks the same as me, but I'd be very, very surprised if I play free hit.
I'm basically 0% likely to play the free hit this week. I look at this draft and I think the draft's really good, but like if I look at my team and it's a wee bit like a legacy team, like I do have Verts on there. Do you know what I mean? Like it gives me that second Liverpool option. I do have Matera. I had Sarr, obviously he got injured, so I think he would have improved my team and made it look closer to a free hit team.
Did
And
you
I
have
suppose we
Salah?
won.
You had
I did have
Salah?
Sarr. I did have Sarr. I
God.
benched him last week.
I didn't
And then
see
I've
him in your 11. Yeah, sorry.
And I also have the option of, I suppose, buying like a Palace defender, Munoz or somebody like that. But no, I do think, I agree, Andy, with your kind of overriding point on the fact that playing the free hit this week doesn't strategically move my team on because I'm going to get the same team back again.
Yeah.
Do you know, like I do think if people have the option of playing the free hit to the wildcard this week and they really don't like their team, I think wildcard's better. Because when we compared the two teams last week, and as you said at the start of the stream, it's still a relevant pod and people can go back and refer to it. The wildcard team and the free hit team have a lot of crossover this week and what looks good long term. So I wouldn't free hit this week, no.
Yeah. And we did speak last week and said that it's a rough week to wildcard. And I think until you press the button and you start building your team, you don't really know how it feels to be on a wildcard. And obviously, I think it's a tough week to wildcard. So it's an interesting. If you are on free hit, though, I think you could have a very good week with the options you've got. I think if Crystal Palace can get a result against Sunderland, those free hit teams are looking very, very good. We've got some com teams up now, Nacho. You're going to talk us through it. I don't know why they both didn't play the bench boost. They had almost more points on their bench than I did in my team.
Yeah, I mean, this is music to our ears, isn't it, boys, right now? Because we've made it clear that this is the season where we have to defeat the com team.
Yeah.
It just has to be done right now. So yeah, it's been an okay start for us, isn't it? So OG Matt's team there on the left-hand side, they're currently top of the league and they scored 58 points. But as you can see, devastating for them, great for us, is that Juve was on the bench with a 10-pointer. But they went for the captaincy of Bruno Fernandes as well. But I quite like the balance of their team. I still think their team's quite nice. Sanchez in goal, Munoz, who of course is going to be featuring for them in game week 4, which none of us have right now, Milenkovic and Van de Ven. And then, of course, Salah, Rodgers, Bruno Fernandes, Reinders and Wirtz. Wirtz is the real one. Obviously, Hibbo's in the same spot where it feels like they're just going to be a game week where he's just going to hit the ground running and everybody's going to be thinking, oh, I need Wirtz in my team. And it feels like it could be the Burnley game. So I'm a little bit scared about the team here because I do feel like they've got the right players in place. The good thing for us is that the third forward is Mark Guéhi. And I mean, I don't love the idea of rolling out with two forwards with so many great forwards available in the game. The saving grace for us, of course, is the second team here. 60 points was a great week, but still sitting fourth in our table. So it's good for us, but it's still tight. 156 points all in. All of us are above them, aren't we, Andy?
Am I bottom? Am I bottom at the moment? I was top,
bottom,
wasn't I? What's
You're
that
always
then?
bottom.
No, mate.
Oh God!
Sorry, I was just checking that. Yeah, no, you are bottom, mate. Yeah,
Honestly,
bottom.
like they're feeling so sorry for me. They're benching 20+ points in a week just to try and give me a chance.
This is the story of the week here. This is the story of the week. Dewsbury and Juve on the bench, 22 points. I mean, you're sick if you're the manager here, obviously. But all in, Richard Sarr is the big claim here. Bruno Fernandes captain. They're in the same boat as us with Sarr. Hopefully they don't watch this and get the right idea where to go. But I like their team going into this week. Similar scenario, Chris Wood, obviously, what they do with Chris Wood. But boys, I feel like we're in an okay spot here. We're not getting trounced and we're holding our own, which is the main thing. Because I can't be doing another forfeit this season.
What a thing to say. We're doing all right here, boys. We're not getting trounced after 3 weeks. No. We're still in the hunt. Brilliant. Double Forest defence for that second com team there. But no, fair play to both of you. It only takes a couple of weeks. And we'll be back on your tail, don't you worry. Let's have a look at some bus teams then. So this is my bus team at the moment. I've got 1.5 million in the bank. And I've got 2 free transfers because I rolled one last week. I've got Sells in goal with Richards, Porro and Aït-Nouri at the back, with Anderson, Salah captain, Bruno Fernandes, Wirtz and Reinders in the middle, with Pedro and Watkins up top. I'm currently benching Murillo, Esteve, Steve and Mark Guéhi, and got Dubravka on the bench as well. So basically, I want Munoz. And I will most likely be doing Murillo to Munoz, I would have thought. Haven't seen anything from Murillo that I've liked so far. I know they've got two nice fixtures coming up. But then I've already got Sells in goal, so I can just keep Sells in goal, have Munoz. Munoz has got the attacking output as well, so I think I'm probably going to do that. Makes a lot of sense. And then I want Mateta. I really want Mateta. And I was very, very close to getting Salah and Mateta last week and following in Hibbo's footsteps. I wouldn't have benched Salah because no one does that. But I'm not really sure where to go to get Mateta because obviously with only 1.5 million in the bank, I cannot do Gue up to Mateta. And Gue's now taken up a Chelsea spot. What an absolute mess that's been. And he's gone down 0.1 as well. So, yeah, I'm not exactly loving that. A lot of people that are not playing 5 in the middle, that are playing 3 up top, are having a lot of joy. And obviously Gue, I think I'm going to have to hold on to until I wildcard, which is a bit of a shame. So, yeah, I could either do Murillo to Munoz and play Munoz and play double Palace defence because I'll have Richards as well. And then maybe I'll roll. Maybe I'll just leave the other transfer and just roll like Wirtz and Salah. Wirtz is obviously somebody that we could be looking to get rid of, but not against Burnley. Reinders could do anything against Man United, unfortunately. Bruno's there to stay. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. If I brought Munoz in, by the way, I'd bench Anderson away to Arsenal. He'd probably get 11 DEFCONs again and just stay on 2 points. But that's what I'm thinking at the moment. And then, yeah, it's not looking too bad. It's not looking great this week, but we'll see how it goes. Nacho, let's have a look at your team. Injured man in the middle for you then?
Yeah, this is the big one, really. I never get too annoyed in these scenarios because you just literally cannot control it, obviously, with the injury to Salah. But one free transfer, and yeah, I'm not... It's very fun. It's very interesting how your team just goes from a team that you like, you make a couple of transfers, and now you're looking, thinking, I feel like not a wild card's incoming, but I feel close to it with everything going on. So I've got 0.7 million in the bank, one free transfer. I'll just read out the starting 11 and then talk you through my plans. So Sanchez in goal away against Brentford, absolutely fine. Back three are Pedro Porro, Van de Ven, and Anderson. Anderson looks great. Double Spurs. I just don't know if I love that myself. Then I've got midfield 5, Dewsbury Hall at home against Villa. Now, I'm telling myself that's great. He's had a great game week 3, but is it actually great? We'll see. Salah with captaincy. Salah injured, of course, Rodgers and Fernandez. And then João Pedro, Watkins up top. Strong bench in terms of Murillo and Chris Wood. But having double Forest now just feels a little bit indifferent. So, couple of routes I could go. The first one is the most boring route ever. And I just play Salah unless we get any concrete news. And I just let Murillo come off the bench. I think I'd probably lean towards Murillo than that to Chris Wood because I know Murillo plays 90. I have no idea what Andrew's going to do with Chris Wood. And I rate Arsenal's defence so highly. And we just pray Murillo rocks up with some sort of defensive contributions. And second option.
Sorry, just very quickly, worth saying as well, Wood has travelled an awful lot over this international break as well.
Yes, great shout. Didn't even think about that. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and now they actually have a deputy who is capable as opposed to Tyrell last season. So yeah, that's a really good point. So Wood will definitely not be featuring for my team. The other option is get rid of Salah, but not in love with the replacements. Paqueta, but against my Spurs defense, just sounds awful. The other option is do the Murillo to Munoz move and just bench Salah and hope I get him back for game week 5 if it doesn't sound like it's too bad, because I think he's one of those players that can score even in the difficult games for them, like Liverpool at home, for example. So, yeah, I think I will be forced to make a transfer with the team and how it's looking, and it may even be a defensive transfer as we discussed.
Yeah, no, I like it. And Hibbo, moving on to yours, my man. Also, Salah, they're sat there in the middle, but you've already got Mateta.
Sorry, I'll come off mute. Right, so this is my team for game week 4. I've got one free transfer and I've got $1 million in the bank. I'll go through back to front for the podcast, people. So Sanchez, he's got Brentford away. Then we've got Porro and Romero, West Ham away. Anderson with Leeds at home, which looks like a fairly good fixture. Salah's locked as captain for me with Burnley, and then I do hope and pray that Wirtz finally comes good in this game. Rangers has got the United fixture. I know with Marmoush is injured, so maybe Rangers becomes that guy. Like maybe he stays a bit more attacking now with that happening. Bruno, I don't really care about the fixture this week because he got me 20 points last week. And Sarr, obviously yellow flag. Then up top we've got Watkins and Matera. So my bench is Thiago, Agbadu and Esteve. There's a couple of ways I could go here. So I could basically make a defensive change and buy Munoz, play Sarr, hope for the best. The chances are he's hamstrung. We're going to have to wait to see what the diagnosis is and the word from Palace. And look, as in training pictures, do they give an update? Then we can see. I think the second option for me is I can just replace Sarr. I don't like to do it. Like I bought a player last week. I didn't even get the points out of him. Then I have to use another transfer, 2 transfers in 2 weeks. Not great. The final option, I think, for me is just a roller transfer. And I don't think it would be the worst move in the world. Maybe this is patience going nuts. Maybe you'd be thinking, oh, you should really attack the game week. You should attack the Palace fixture and get somebody on. I don't mind the team this week, and I'm just kind of thinking long term about when am I going to play my chips. I'm thinking very much about free hitting in game week 6. And I'm looking at that game week 7 slot, and I'm thinking people are going to wildcard around there. And they're going to wildcard, and they're going to want to buy, say, 3 Arsenal players. So I kind of want to get myself in a position that I've got some transfers in the bank that I can pivot and move that direction myself too. So I think there's lots to think about. At the minute, the most likely thing for me is Sarr out, Sabeway's moved to a similar value midfielder, like we've talked about them, and Dye, Grealish, Anderson, somebody from that kind of vein, or take a defender out to Munoz. So they're the most likely, but Roll isn't off the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like your two teams. I do like your 2 teams a lot more than mine. I don't think Rollins a bad move with that team, to be perfectly honest. But obviously that's with Sarr healthy. I mean, Thiago, is he that bad against Chelsea at home? Chelsea have been extremely lucky with their clean sheets. So I don't think it's that bad. I think Rollins fine, personally. But it's just, how much you want to add a little bit more Palace in there, I guess. But I think you're right at the moment. Right, let's have a few questions from people in the chat. I think we peaked at about 550 people in the chat, which is great considering England were playing. So thanks very much for joining us. We've already got some people with some questions. John 13, I'll ask you this one, Nacho, because I know you've got him as well. Rodgers, keep or transfer?
Oh, this is the big one here. I think I'm clinging on to a bit of nostalgia from last season, and I'm really curious to see how Harvey Elliott obviously adapts and improves this Villa team, hopefully. I wouldn't put off anybody. If you want to go Semenyo, move away from Rodgers, absolutely fine. But I just feel like if it was a choice of roll the transfer or get rid of Rodgers, I would much rather roll the transfer and back Rodgers and Villa to react off the back of this international break. So yeah, I'm going to put my faith in him for 1 more week at least.
Yeah. FPL Chicken says, selling Forest defenders ahead of Burnley and Sunderland, isn't that nuts, Hibbo? You're muted still again, Hibbo.
We've discussed this earlier, and I do agree. I think if you have the option of, say, benching your Forest defender this week and rolling them out against Burnley and Sunderland, I would definitely do that. I think you have to be in a very bad position defensively to use your transfer. I think they maybe moved the Munoz from a Forest defender this week. If you've got a different defender, I'll understand it, but I do think the Forest defender, you could give them 3 game weeks and then reassess.
Yeah, potentially. Al says, how long do we give Watkins, Nacho? more Villa.
Like I said, I don't want to be the Villa guy who everybody's going to be DMing me saying, you guaranteed me returns. But Villa got to score eventually. And we know the recipe for goals at Villa is Watkins and Rodgers. So I'm going to stick by him, and I'm going to say, my only thing I will say just quickly is because the next 4 fixtures are okay, you're going to get in a spot where you're probably going to get past 1 game and go, but the next was good, and you're 4 game weeks down. So I think once you want to get rid of him, just do it, because I don't think you're ever going to get rid of him otherwise, because each fixture looks good after that one. So it's just like, there's never been a good time, but if you see an opportunity, just do it. I, for one, I'm just going to be a baby and keep him.
Not the one. What do you reckon, Hibbo? Do we take a punt on Madueke? Scored tonight as well.
Could be okay, but I think long term he's not going to be number 1.
Yeah.
He's playing at the minute in the Arsenal team because Saka's out. He could maybe play on the other side as well, but there's competition there, so I don't really believe in investing in a player like that who's going to be rotation.
You Raise Me Up said, Nacho, what about Morgan, Rogers and Watkins? What do I do with those two?
Don't you dare.
Did you like the name I used as well? Indy says, sorry if you've covered this, but joined late. Evening, Indy, saying best 4.5 million defender options, Nacho. Who would you pick if you could now?
On the spot. I'm trying to remember.
Richards at 4.5 has got to be pretty high up there, I would say.
Yeah, I'm just looking at like the fixture ticker right now. I think Richards probably the standout. Conser, if you want to go Villa, but I just haven't seen enough to really justify that. Otherwise, I'm going to put out there, if Senesi has stayed at 4.5, I don't mind that as a choice either. Defensive contributions are great.
He smashed it. He has absolutely smashed it this season so far.
It's
And last one, Freddie says, Hibbo, are you considering Sada Semenyo with your 1 million in the bank?
It's definitely an option for me. You know, Semenyo started the season quite well, although obviously the returns against Liverpool in game week 1 are sticking in the memory more than his more recent stuff. But Semenyo's definitely an option for me. Like, I think with $1 million in the bank, I do have that kind of option to go up as well. He would be in the top 3, say, Semenyo. Yeah. But look, wait and see until closer to the weekend. I do kind of want word in a timeline for Sarr, because if there's an option for me to maybe sit him for a week, like the word was I had a grade 2 hamstring tear, but like the only people that has confirmed that's maybe like I think Senegal Federation, and the tweet was in French, so
yeah. Just wait and see, I guess. And like I said, Saturday morning deadline, it gives us quite a long time to get some information, so fingers crossed. Thank you so much for all the people that joined us tonight. We almost tapped out at 600, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for all those listening after the fact, and also those people listening on the pod as well, because we appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you very much. Nacho, thank you so much for joining us this evening, my man. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it's been pretty stacked show to us. I feel like we covered off a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed this one. Really good. And let's hope for 3 green arrows. Hopefully someone doesn't disappoint us.
Oh, fingers crossed. I'm doing match of the day challenge as well for Black Box, so Saturday's going to be interesting for me. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to text you all the results during the
You're not. You're not, because I know what you do. You text me all the wrong ones, and I'd go on thinking I've had a great week, and Muno's got sent off, and Hibbo, thank you for joining us. Really enjoyed you being here. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
I think you only enjoyed me being here so that you could mention Sarr all the time, but no, it's been a good show. Ismail Sarr, it's been a good show. I think Nacho hit the nail on the head. We got through a lot. I think tonight. Really looking forward to game week 4. Good luck to the people that play the free hit. And turn you that arrow red or green. Like, see these red arrows? You need to change this here. You need to join us boys with the green arrows next week, because that comm team's terrible. You see the second comm team, them boys are terrible. Damn. And they're beating you this week.
I had 11 consecutive green arrows, and I've had
I've had
2 reds in a row, and I've come crashing back down to earth. Right, thank you so much, everybody. We will see you again next week when Game Week 4 is in the books. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.